And you are good to go.
You can still see my screen share. Great. Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for spending some time with me this morning. For those who don't know me, I'm Sara Pinkham. I'm the Exhibition and Engagement Coordinator here at the libraries for the main library gallery. And today, I'm just going to be giving you kind of an overview of what's happening this fall in the gallery. So as you can see in the photo above here on the slide, this is From Revolutionary Outcast to a Man of God, Dostoevsky at 200. So moving on to the next slide. There we go. So first, I just wanted to start off and say that each of the exhibits that we do in the gallery is only made possible through teamwork. So Anna Barker is our curator this fall. She's an adjunct assistant professor of Russian literature here at the UI. Kalmia Strong is our creative coordinator at the libraries, and she does the design and helps with installation. And the whole mood of the gallery is because of Kalmia's design. So just many thanks to her for all of her hard work with that. Bill Voss is also plays a huge role, and he does the preparation, which means he's creating the mounts for all of the objects that are on display, works on conservation and installation. So you can see Bill there putting together some of our temporary walls. That's no small feat. So a big kudos to Bill for being able to handle that with my subpar assistants. And then Giselle, our university conservator, does conservation consultation. Try saying that 5 times fast, I guess. And that involves during our layout meetings with the curator or curators, checking every object to make sure that it doesn't need some kind of treatment before it goes on display. Will Brown helped us this semester with our gallery technology, which includes some music, 8 hours of music to be exact, of chanting and other music. And then Ken Klinkenbeard is so essential to getting our getting our digital content out there online. So if you check out any of the websites for the exhibits, you'll see all of Ken's work, and so grateful to Ken. And then on my part, it's exhibit coordination, help with installation, editing, working with the curators, publicity, events, online content, putting the virtual exhibit together, all kinds of things. I'm sort of the catch-all. And then we also have a crew of people who help with each exhibit in various ways. So Katie Buhner, Eric Ensley, Lisa Gardinier, Lindsay Moen, anyone else who helped with this exhibit, huge thank you. And that other photo is Kalmia putting the vinyl on the front window, also a challenge. So as you can see, we did, and here you can see some of the vinyl on the walls as well. So that was definitely a challenge, but it was fun. So this exhibit, curated by Anna, has a focus on the life and works of Russian writer Fyodor Dostoevsky, and it's the 200th anniversary of his birth, so she wanted to celebrate that, and the exhibit is split up into 4 different sections. So we have the Rebel section, which kind of explores his childhood, his early novels, and his road to prison, which I think surprises people who are not really familiar with Dostoevsky. There's a section on Convict, which describes his life in a Siberian labor camp and his exile in Siberia when he met his first wife, and how he, developed some of his philosophies on life. The next section is Gambler, talks about his European travels, basically how jaded he got about Europe after his travels, when he met his second wife, Anna, and then also just his debts. He was incredibly in debt, and he was very addicted to gambling. So that was really a struggle in his life. And then the last section is Prophet. And this is when he published some of his most famous novels. And that was later in life, after he met his wife, Anna, who was his stenographer. So she kind of pushed him into success towards the end. And he was successful his whole career for the most part, except for some of the beginning. But really those last 5 novels that she helped him with are probably some of his most well-known. So he became known as the conscience of the nation, and Russian pride over perceived Western hypocrisy is kind of what that talks about at the end. So we also have some books in the exhibit that were inspired by Dostoevsky. So we've got Orwell, Kafka, Oscar Wilde, even Sylvia Plath, Robert Louis Stevenson. I had never connected any of these authors to Dostoevsky prior to Anna putting this exhibit together. There's also a case of further reading with books that have themes similar to Dostoevsky's novels or which relate to his life and works. And Anna likes to say that case, it's the big square case in the middle of the gallery. She likes to say that that case is full of books she's never read but aspires to read, which I didn't learn until the very end. So maybe she'll get around to reading those one day. But we do have a suggested reading list that we'll end up putting in the LibGuide, and that's also on the website and in our exhibit guide. There's also a section on family. It's definitely one of the lengthier sections, but she wanted to make sure that she got some information in there about his family members and how they were involved with his life. So the book that you see on the left is The Trial by Kafka, and that's from Special Collections, and it's a 1956 edition. So sourcing the objects for this exhibit, they came from a variety of places. So we've got objects from Special Collections and archives. We have things even from our circulating collection and from Anna's personal collection. She even brought in a few props that she bought on eBay. She got some shackles, 19th century shackles to be exact. Want to make sure we're historically accurate. A samovar and kind of a tea set that we have in the front window, if you get a chance to check that out and walk by. There were definitely some challenges during the pandemic, as most of us have experienced trying to do any of our work over the last couple of years. One of those challenges for Anna especially was that she really wanted to get into the 4th floor stacks and look at the massive Dostoevsky section that we have there and just kind of start from here and work her way down to just a few items. So we ended up getting special permission at some point closer to the opening of the exhibit. She went through, checked out many, many, many books and narrowed them down to those that she decided to put into the exhibit. So the book on the left is actually helps with placemaking in the exhibit, and it's from Special Collections, and it's an 1854 travel book about Russia. So here we are again. 19th century, mostly, travel books about Russia from Special Collections. A big thanks to Eric Ensley for helping Anna find these books. She was not really sure what to put in the first section of the exhibit, which describes the beginning of Dostoevsky's life. She wasn't sure what materials to put in there and what might make the most sense, but Eric came up with the grand idea of putting in some Russian travel books that we have in Special Collections. So as I said, those kind of help to establish place within the exhibit. So we have a representation from St. Petersburg, where he spent much of his life, Moscow, where he was born, Siberia, where he spent time in the camp, and in exile in Omsk specifically. And there's also a map there that kind of helps get an idea of where he was in Siberia. So we've got books here that range from 1815 all the way up to 1971. And the 1971 map is actually a reproduction or facsimile of a book that was put out in 1914. So these are all from Special Collections. There are several books in the exhibit that were inspired by Dostoevsky, things that I wouldn't have connected with him at first, like Oscar Wilde's Picture of Dorian Gray, Robert Louis Stevenson's Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 1984 by George Orwell, Animal Farm by George Orwell, and then Brave New World Revisited by Aldous Huxley. So these are all books that have in some way connection to to stories told by Dostoevsky. In the case of Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Picture of Dorian Gray, those are both inspired by Dostoevsky's novel, The Double, which I have not read. So I hope eventually to get there. But it's really interesting that some of my favorite authors, including Oscar Wilde, were inspired by Dostoevsky. So that was kind of a fun bit of trivia for me. We also have here in the photo to the upper right, there's a poem. If you get a chance to visit the exhibit or visit the virtual exhibit where I've transcribed the poem, it's really kind of disturbing. So I would highly recommend reading it for sure. So also from special collections, we've got some miscellaneous editions of Dostoevsky himself. So one of his first books was Poor Folk, and the edition that we have is from 1894. And I believe that was really his first kind of success in publishing. And then we've got a German version of The Double, Der Doppelgänger, with 60 drawings by Alfred Kubin, and that is from 1922. I just really love the cover on that. It's kind of simple, but I just really love it. Then there's also The Grand Inquisitor with it's a signed copy by Fritzeichenberg, who did a lot of the illustrations that are represented in the exhibit. And here we are, more Fritzeichenberg. So several of the books on display, particularly in the profit section and also in the convict and gambler sections. Okay, so 3 out of 4 have illustrations by Fritzeichenberg, and he's an illustrator who has done illustrations for Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, all kinds of famous writers, and he's done these wood engravings, not woodcuts, wood engravings, which would take absolutely forever. So if you look at the detail on some of these illustrations, it's just amazing what he's done. So he did special editions for the Limited Editions Club over a series of decades. I think from the maybe 50s through 70s or 80s or so. Might have that wrong, but so it took him years to get through these, but he's got some great editions that he's illustrated. So those are on display in the exhibit. We also have a Charles Dickens. Why is Charles Dickens in this exhibit? What is he doing? Well, more trivia about Dostoevsky. He was actually really inspired by Charles Dickens. So we've got a copy of The Old Curiosity Shop from 1848 on display. We've also got a Russian Psalter on display. And what's kind of interesting about this book, at least for us, is that it was in pretty rough shape when we selected it for the exhibit and went through conservation treatment. It was just really astounding. So we'll be talking about that in just a moment. But this is an 1851 Psalter, I believe. And yes, so Charles Dickens, very much an inspiration to Dostoevsky. Would definitely recommend reading a little bit more about that connection for sure. But he was a big hero to Dostoevsky, and they were contemporaries, which is interesting. So conservation, I think this is where I want to spend the most time in our presentation. So there are a few books that required some help. And as we said before, each exhibit item is assessed by Giselle for conservation needs prior to display. And what's great about being able to do an exhibit like this that pulls from older materials especially is that we're able to find objects that are in need of treatment and repair those prior to display. So we were able to get that treatment done, put it on display, and then put it back knowing that it's received the best possible care from conservation. So all the treatment for items in this exhibit was performed by Bill Voss, and he did an amazing job. I've decided Bill is a conservation wizard, so kudos to you, Bill. And the range of treatments for items in this exhibit were simple to complex. So there were a few kind of easy fixes, and then there were some really, just pull the book apart type fixes. So at the left, we have travels through part of the Russian Empire and the country of Poland, et cetera, et cetera. by Robert Johnston from Special Collections. And this is the oldest book in the exhibit from 1815. And you can see that it had some cosmetic issues. So we've got the before photos there and the after, and you can see that those cosmetic issues have been fully remedied. This book, it looked a lot more distressing than I have in the before photo here. It was a lot more curled. So Bill was able to flatten this book and create a custom box for it. So this is the Grand Inquisitor, a 1930 edition. So hopefully it will stay in its box and won't do any more curling. But I just love the boxes that conservation is able to make. Just art to me. So another book that we worked on for this exhibit was Poor Folk, and this was kind of a simpler repair. So you can see on the left, the before is there's a crack there, and at the right, Bill was able to fix that. And again, this is the 1894 Poor Folk by Dostoyevsky. So this book is sketches of Russia with 15 engravings from 1831. And this is also Special Collections, of course. And the before and after of this book is pretty deceptive, because the before you're like, oh, okay, there's a crack there on the spine. Oh, you can see binding waste there. That's not great. And the after, it looks, like put together. But what I learned about the binding waste used here, and I had to look this up because I'm curious every time, I learned that this is from the hit publication, or not, the British Magazine and Monthly Register of Religious and Ecclesiastical Information, Parochial History, and Documents Respecting the State of the Poor, Progress and Education, etc., from London, 1840. So the sections that were used as binding waste were for better preventing clandestine marriages and better regulating and preserving parish and other registers of births, baptisms, marriages, and burials in England. Just riveting. So that's what I discovered was in binding waste there. And here's some of Bill's photos showing the progress, and there's a few slides here on the progress of this book. So the pages were coming away, and a more complex treatment was required to improve the condition of the book. So you can see that he's on the upper left shown how it looks when the book is open at first before repair, and then needed to kind of unbind the book, if you will. And so you can see the progress there. And then you can also see on the lower right-hand photo with the music, there's a kind of poorly done repair that was made years and years ago. We have no idea when that was done, but someone really tried. So here's some more progress photos from Bill. The spine was repaired and the pages were resewn after this. So he's made sure to get progress photos of every step that he's done. So you can see a lot of the pieces are pulled apart, and he's pulled the spine off. And after repair, this is much improved. So it looks excellent on the outside. Nothing is falling apart. The stitches have been redone. The book's been rebound. Everything looks great, and he created a custom box for it. So we're all set here with this one. And here's the Russian Psalter that I showed open earlier, a bit of a close-up of the symbols, the characters used in the actual Psalter. But this book's before photos really show red rot. The leather was adhered to the spine and that cracked over time. And what was interesting to Giselle and to Bill is that it was the original binding and it had no previous treatments or alterations. So this book was actually fixed for the first time ever in 170 years by Bill. So looking rough there. Here's some of Bill's progress photos. So what Bill says is the main challenge was to remove the remaining pieces of the spine intact, after which a new spine piece that stays free of the back when opening was inserted under the original covers. Then the spine was adhered and the edges of the repairs were mended with tissue and toned with acrylic. So a lot of steps here, a lot of time, but looks excellent. And here's the repaired book. Amazing. wizard. So this is after treatment in the conservation lab, and it's ready for display. So even though you can't see the back of the book in the actual exhibit, I just thought that this really deserved a mention because the transformation was so profound, in my opinion. It really looked rough to start off with, and now it looks fantastic. So here's some more photos of the exhibit, kind of showing those different sections. The exhibit is open through December 17th. We've got several events happening this fall. So Anna is putting together a series of tours on Saturdays. I'll share more about that in a moment. And I mean, there's just really a lot going on. So 7 days per week, the gallery is open. You can just walk in. We're not doing appointments anymore ever since June 1st when the exterior doors to the main library opened. So you can just stroll in anytime you like. We're open Mondays and then Wednesdays through Fridays, 9 to 6. Tuesday, we're open a little bit later. So that's 9 to 8. And then Saturdays and Sundays from 1 to 5. And I've got a few dates later this fall that are a little bit different just because we've got some events occurring. But you'll see that reflected in our hours on the website. We've also been having select special collections classes meeting in the main library gallery. So those larger classes that need a larger space are meeting here. So we're setting up tables, and special collections is bringing down the items requested by instructors, and the classes are able to enjoy the items in a larger space with much better airflow, and also check out the exhibit while they're down there. So that's been great. We also have an increase in classes booking visits to the exhibit specifically, and that's been for rhetoric and literature courses. So that's really exciting to me because when I first started in this role, one of my goals was to increase visibility and to get more classes coming into the gallery and incorporating the gallery into their syllabi. So I'm so excited that we've had so many classes visiting specifically for the exhibit this semester. And we've got a new assignment available with thanks to Katie Hassman and grad students from last year, TAs Jacqueline Bannigan and Jamie Chen. They spent some time last year working on an assignment called Reading an Object in the main library gallery. And it's a fully packaged assignment that instructors can use. And it's been used several times so far to great success. The instructors so far have enjoyed it. And the students are able to put their rhetoric skills to use. So lots happening. The gallery is really hopping this semester. And events happening this fall in the gallery. There's one gallery, there are not multiple galleries. We've got curator guided tours with Anna. And there's in fact one at the very end, Thursdays with Anna and Fyodor in November, on November 11th to celebrate his birthday. So I just had to put a tiny birthday hat on Dostoevsky. So there he is with his tiny birthday hat. Curator guided tours are usually about an hour, and it's a lot more in depth because Anna is such an expert in the life of Dostoevsky and an expert in all of his works. She's read and listened to them so many times. So she's the perfect person to give a lot more in-depth guided tour with all the juicy tidbits that you could possibly want, and answer every question you could possibly have about Dostoevsky or his works. So please, if you're interested in gaining a little bit more insight into what's in the exhibit, stop by one of the curator guided tours, which are often on a Saturday at 2 p.m. So you can check that out on lib.uiowa.edu/gallery. We also have one guest speaker coming this fall. We did have Father Ignatius Valentine coming to speak on October 7th, but he is pulled out of his commitments this fall. He's not feeling very well, so he's decided not to join us, which is completely fine. We're hoping that he's doing okay. Nathan Platt is going to be talking about Dostoevsky at the Opera on October 14th. So that's in the gallery. So stop in if you're interested in Dostoevsky and or opera and or are a fan of Nathan Platt. Everyone is welcome. And we also have Riverside Theater coming in this fall. This is something different and new and originally unanticipated, but very exciting. So The Grand Inquisitor is based on a chapter of Dostoevsky's novel The Brothers Karamazov. which Anna is reading with an online group over Facebook right now. So if you're interested in reading the Brothers Karamazov this fall, I think through December something, she's kind of conducting a reading group over Facebook. So check that out if you're interested, something that she's doing with the Iowa City Book Festival. But the Grand Inquisitor is being put on by Riverside Theater. There'll be 8 performances towards the end of October. And I'm not certain how long it is yet, but it's 2 actors and it'll be kind of a more intimate experience. There won't be that many tickets given away. I think a maximum of maybe 50 or so, 40 or 50 visiting the gallery at one time to see this play. So it'll just be a really interesting experience, and would definitely recommend. The tickets are free, and I just noticed that they're available right now on the Riverside website. So if you'd like to see that play in the gallery space, please do reserve a ticket. And again, birthday celebration, November 11th. We're having the choir from St. Raphael here in Iowa City Orthodox Church come and sing a happy birthday song to Dostoevsky. I don't know what that sounds like, so I'm kind of excited. And we'll have some buckwheat pancakes as well, which are Anna's Russian specialty. So there will be pancakes, tiny pancakes, and also a very short concert in celebration of his birthday on November 11th. And I mustn't forget to mention Thursdays with Anna and Fyodor. It's an event, but it's not. It's basically just Anna is present in the gallery from 3 to 5 on certain Thursdays for you to come in and ask her questions, or just to chat with her, or she'll give you a full-on tour if you want. It's anything you want it to be. So stop in on a Thursday from 3 to 5 and chat with Anna. We also have the virtual tour available. So I'll show that in just a moment, but I would also say that virtual tours are still available for previous exhibits, Building Our Own Community, which was on display in spring of this year, and then Stackner Archive, which was fall of 2020. So those are all still available online if you go to the exhibit pages within the gallery website. Let's see if this will work. Maddie, can you see the tour okay? Yes, okay, cool. All right, so this is our virtual tour through ThingLink, and you can access that through the gallery website on the page for this exhibit. This is the start. So just to give you just a brief overview of how this works, there are icons that you can click on within the exhibit, and it goes by section. So here we've got just a caption, a label for this photo of Dostoevsky here. We've got a blog post linked here with the Q&A with Anna, so you can read through that. We've got our exhibit guide available to look through, and our exhibit guide, like many of our exhibit guides in the past, includes numbers which correspond with numbers in the cases. So you'll see our travels through part of the Russian Empire, etc., number 1, and in the case next to that book is the number 1. So definitely take a look at that as you're going through this exhibit virtually or in person. And then we've got kind of our text here for each of the panels. Move on to the next section. And it takes you over to our Rebel case. So for example, these have some of our photos from the cases and our text, and these are all available to be read by a screen reader. There's a little icon here that shows that. So if you'd like to hear everything read to you, that is possible. And then we've got the labels as well as image descriptions for all of our items that are in the exhibit. So that's just a little sample of what you can look at in the virtual exhibit. And our next exhibits that are coming up, whoops, too far. Our next exhibits that are coming up January through July of next year. I can't believe 2022 is on the horizon already. It's We Are Hawkeyes, celebrating 175 years of student life at the University of Iowa. And of course, that's in celebration of 175 years of the University of Iowa. And Old Capitol Museum is also putting on an exhibit, but it will not focus on student life. So we're making sure that our exhibits are complementary. But this is curated by David McCartney, Aidan Bettine, and Denise Anderson. So many thanks to all three of them for all of the work they've been putting in to prepare for this exhibit. It's going to be excellent. So I highly recommend stopping in next semester several times because there's going to be great stuff in there. August through December 2022, that's 55 years of the world's literatures at the Writing University. So that'll focus on the International Writing Program, and that's Lisa and Natasha putting that together. And we actually have a meeting this afternoon to work on selecting items. So that's going really well. And spring 2023, Queer in Every Sphere, curated by Maddie Hoberg and Anne Kreitman, who is a grad student in the theater arts. So that's also going to be excellent. That is all I have for you today, kind of short. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording really quick. Excuse me.